Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, I want to thank you for joining us for this webinar on parenting during a pandemic. This webinar is brought to you by Preferred Systems Incorporated, and this whole series of prevention workshops during the COVID-19 pandemic is sponsored through a 2020 Erie County CARES Act grant for behavioral health and substance use services. So we're certainly appreciative for that grant and to Preferred Systems for providing these webinars. To begin with, I'll just give you a little introduction to myself. I am currently the CEO of Catholic Charities Counseling and Adoption Services. We have offices throughout the 13 county area of the Erie Diocese. I have worked for probably almost 30 years in the mental health field, and I started in the early days as a family-based mental health worker where I'd go out into homes and work as a team member providing mental health services to children and their families in the home setting. I have a master's degree from Gannon University in counseling. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Pennsylvania, and I am a national certified counselor, NCC, through the National Board of Certified Counselors. I've been doing some of these workshops with Preferred Systems for a couple years now, and I hope you find this one enjoyable and enlightening today. Before we get started, I would just like to remind you that, or let you know, in case you're not familiar with this platform, that you should be able to find on your screen a chat box. So if you have any questions during this presentation, please feel free to click on the chat button. You might have to go all the way over to the three dots that says more and click on that and go down to chat to find it. Sometimes it comes right up on your screen. Everyone's setup is a little bit different, but I wanted to let you know that that was there and available for you. So if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to shoot me a chat or a question, and I'll try to answer it as quickly as I can. The other option you have as well is my email is on the screen, jhaas@cccas.org. If you have any question at all, either during this presentation or even afterwards, feel free to email me and I will try to help you out in any way that I can. So at this point, I cannot see you and you should not be able to see any of the other participants. If you can, please shoot me a chat so I can know that, or an email so I can know that. But you are anonymous and I can't see you, and hopefully you can see me and you will be able to see the screen with the PowerPoint presentation. So with that, let's begin our webinar for today. The first question that comes to mind when we're talking about parenting during the pandemic, and kind of our theme for today that I'd like to present to you, is the idea of stay calm but be vigilant. I think that's really what we're dealing with right now, is we all have to be able to just take a breath, relax, and get through this together. So the first question that often comes to mind is, what should we tell the kids? The first thing, obviously, is to stay positive. You want to maintain an upbeat presence. You want to let the kids know that we will get through this, we can get through this, we will get through this. Yes, this is difficult. These are difficult times for everyone, from young kids to parents to grandparents. All of us are struggling in these unprecedented times to figure out what it is, how do we get through life with this new quote unquote normal that we're dealing with. So when we talk about what should we tell the kids, what's important is, first and foremost, to answer the questions honestly, but to do so at an age-appropriate level. So for example, if kids are asking, are we going to die? Are grandma and grandpa going to die? How you answer that question really will depend on the age of the kid. With younger kids, you want to reassure them that, most people will not get coronavirus, and if they do, they will, have some health conditions, but they won't die. But you also have to be honest and say some people, a lot of people in our country are dying, and we have to, that's why we want to take all these precautions to help grandma and grandpa stay safe, or why we want to stay safe, and that everyone has to do their part to make sure that we as a family stay safe and we as a country stay safe, and that we all are working together on this. So, it's really important that um, that we try to answer their questions in the way they need to. They may be kids are pretty savvy with hearing news in ways that we don't often know or recognize. One of the questions they may have is, "Mommy or Daddy, are you going to lose your job?" Again, it depends on the age of the child. To a younger child, you want to reassure them to the best that you can that no, Mommy and Daddy um, are working hard, and that we have a lot of talents, and we're going to be okay. To older kids, you might say, I honestly don't know. It's things are looking pretty tough at work, and I'm not sure what's happening. Or you can reassure them and say, no, my workplace is secure, we're doing remote, or we're on site, but we take a lot of precautions. I mean, the key to this question is to be honest with the kid. What is your situation, to an adolescent kid or a young adult? What is going on at work? Are you safe? Are you going to keep your job? Are we going to be okay? The same thing with financially. Older kids may ask that question: is our family okay financially? Again, you have to answer to a level that they can hear. You know your kid, so you want to be able to answer the question in a way that they can hear it, and be reassured, but you're also being honest. You don't want to tell them one thing, say, "Oh no, it's fine, everything's fine," and then the next week they find out that you have been laid off. That's really going to hurt your relationship with your child, and you don't want that. Not during this time. There's too many other things going on, too many other uncertainties in life. They need to count on the certainty that you're going to be straightforward and honest with them. So I would certainly recommend that. And the last thing I think is important in this regard is to always remember that it's okay to say, I don't know. Are you going to lose your job? I don't know. I don't think so, but times are tough. Or, are we going to get sick? Are grandma and grandpa going to get sick? I don't know, but they're doing a good job of social distancing and following the protocols, and we're doing a good job, and so I don't think they're going to get sick. I feel pretty safe they're not, but honestly, I don't know. So it's okay to say that. A lot of times people feel like they have to have the answer, and that's not true, and that's not being honest with the kids, because really for a lot of us, we don't know the answer. Staying safe outside the home. Okay, so we're doing a good job of quarantining, staying in. Most people are doing a really good job of not going out and being in a lot of unsafe environments. We're masking. If you go around Erie County or around these areas and you go to stores, you see that a good 80 to 90% of or more of the people are wearing masks or maintaining social distancing or are following the state mandates and state requirements to maintain social distancing, and then they're doing a good job. But what about when we have to go out, or we just need to get out of the house because we can't stay trapped? We have to get out and get about. So what do we do? Well, one of the first ways that people get out of the house is they go visit family members or go visit friends. So what do you do in that situation? One of the things that I think is important is to look at and to know, if you're going to grandma and grandpa's house, is it safe? Are your parents, your grandparents, the kids' grandparents, are they being socially safe? Are they taking precautions, or are they being cavalier with this and taking a devil may care attitude? If that's true, you may not want to take your kids to go visit them. You may need to say to your mom and dad or the kids' grandparents that I'm not safe bringing the kids to see you. I'm disappointed in how you're handling this, and I don't feel comfortable taking the kids to see you, and that's perfectly safe. Remember, it's your job to take care of your kids and yourself first and foremost, and not worry about other people's feelings. On the other hand, we know that our parents or our grandparents are lonely, and they're missing the contact with their kids. They're missing contact with you. They're missing contact with their grandkids. And so we need to and want to find ways to do that. One of the big questions is to hug or not to hug. Do you let your kids hug your grandparents? Again, that's a decision that you have to make, knowing your parents and your kids. If you feel like everyone has been safe, boy, the hug is great for both the grandparents and the kids. Um, but if you're not comfortable with that, follow your gut, follow your instincts. Most of the parents that I've worked with over my long career have really good parental instincts, and I say follow them. If you don't think it's safe, don't let them do it. Always in this time of our lives, you're always better to err on the side of safety and caution than having a cavalier attitude about things. So I would say, play that by ear. That's a tough one. Can you or should you go inside someone else's house? Again, I think you have to follow your gut instinct on that. As much as you can meet the grandparents outside and sit around outside, I think the CDC and the health authorities are saying that's the preferred way to go. Go over and visit grandma and grandpa and stay out on the deck or sit out in the front yard in lawn chairs. Be available, be together, see each other, but maintain the social distance so that everyone stays safe. As we get closer to the fall and the winter weather, we're going to have to relook at that. And again, we're going to have to evaluate, do we think that our friends' homes or our parents, the kids' grandparents' homes are safe? That's going to depend. And so you want to follow your gut on that to make sure that it's okay. What about public places? It's almost impossible to not go to grocery stores or the hardware stores, different things like that. How do you keep your kids safe in those environments? Well, obviously, almost every store should, under Pennsylvania requirements, require masks. Now, let's face it, when you go to a Walmart or a Home Depot or a Lowe's or any of a number of stores, you will see people that don't have their masks on. They're just bound and determined that they don't need a mask, and this is all a big hoax. So what do you as a parent do about it? Well, what I would say is use your better judgment. If the person is far enough away from your kids, I don't know that you need to say anything or do anything. But what if you're in line and this person is standing within a couple feet of your kids? What I would say is let your mama bear or your daddy lion come out and say to that person, could you please step back? I'm not comfortable with the distance between you and my child. Be the protector of your child. Don't look for confrontation just for confrontation's sake, but certainly be an advocate for your child. There's nothing wrong with saying to someone, I'm uncomfortable with you not wearing a mask. Could you please step back? Could you please give me the 6 feet of distance? You may even want to do that when you and the other person have masks on, if they're still crowding you. Because I've been in situations where that happens, that the stores have done a great job of putting out those distance markers, and people still come right up and stand right on your back. There's nothing wrong with saying, could you please do me a favor and back up a little bit? And most of the time, people will respect that. They get it. They don't like it, but they get it and they will respect it. What about, in the picture here, you should see a little playground. What about playgrounds? Can you go to playgrounds? Well, what the CDC is saying is, yes, they believe that playgrounds are safe. It is safer to be outdoors. You should still wear masks. If you're the only ones at the playground, your kids probably don't need the masks. But as soon as other kids arrive, or if there are other kids on site, then you're probably going to want your kids to have masks. One of the good things that we've seen so far is there's not as much concern about social or surface touching concerns, as long as you follow, again, the prescribed patterns of hand sanitizer, washing your hands thoroughly, making sure that you're taking the precautions, but it's not as big a risk as we initially thought in terms of transmission. The transmission, from what they're saying, is mostly through aerosolized air. It's through the droplets in the air. And so as much as you can mitigate that, that's how you're going to keep your kids safe. The important thing in all of this, when we go out in public, take our kids out in public, from the schools to shopping stores to grocery markets to wherever we take our kids, what's important is that we keep our kids safe but not scared, that we let the kids know why we're doing what we're doing, that these are safety measures that we all need to take. And look, almost everybody's doing it. We're all doing this together. We're in this together, and we're going to get through this together. We don't want the kids to be scared in this time, but we want them to know that, it is important that we all stay safe. One of the things that's difficult as parents is helping our kids through what many are referring to as the lost year of their lives, of our lives. Kids have lost a lot of things, from high school proms to high school and elementary school graduations, first communions, confirmations. Most of the kids in sports lost their entire spring and summer seasons. It's really been a difficult time. And so how do we help the kids to, hang in there? How do we help them get through this year? Well, I think the first thing we do is we help the kids deal with loss, to recognize it as a loss, just to name it and say, I'm truly sorry. We don't want to just say, yeah, everybody's losing something, get over it. What we want to do is we want to recognize and voice the pain of loss. This stinks. I'm sorry. I can't tell you how sorry I am that your school didn't have their prom this year. I'm so sorry that, grandma and grandpa weren't able to come to your graduation. Your school did a nice job of structuring a limited graduation, but I'm sorry that grandma and grandpa couldn't come. I'm sorry you couldn't have the big graduation party that your brother or your sister had. I think it's important that we say to kids, we're in this together, and this is hard for everyone, but I feel what you're going through. I know, I get it. You're right. Conversely, the other thing we want to do is to encourage kids not to dwell on it. We don't want them to be like, oh, this is the worst. I can't believe how terrible this year is, how terrible my life is. Figures, this is happening to me. No, we want to keep kids and ourselves positive. We want to make sure that we don't allow them to dwell on the negatives of everything that's going on. Because one of the things that I think people have done a wonderful job of doing is finding new ways to celebrate. I saw a number of people that had prom parties, so the kids were still able to dress up in the dresses that they had already bought, or the tuxes or suits. They had fancy dinners that were socially distanced, and they made it a special time for their kids. I think that's what we have to look for. Schools did a great job of figuring out how to reconfigure graduations so the kids at least had some sort of ceremony to send them off, a rite of passage that's so important to send them off. I think we have to do that in our homes and in our environments too. We're coming up on some big holidays that are going to be radically different. What's Thanksgiving going to look like this year? Is your family, extended family, your traditional Thanksgiving going to be able to happen? Or you're going to have to look for new ways to celebrate. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. Talk to your family, figure out, okay, this isn't ideal. This isn't what we had hoped for or what we come to expect every year. But what can we do to still make it fun? What can we do to get together? My family, I come from a family of 7 kids. We've all come together at my house for the last 13, 14 years. They come from out of town. We all come together. There's 25 to 35 of us that gather every year, and we have certain rituals. We get together on Wednesday night and eat spaghetti dinner. Thursday we have Thanksgiving. Afterwards we have the turkey bowl football game, and then we come back and eat soup and pie. And Friday we would get up and we would all go to a movie together at the theater. And then we come back that night and we'd have the kids would have a talent show. We're not going to be able to do that this year. I have relatives in all different kind of states. 5 of our nieces and nephews and sons and daughters are in college, so some of them are remote, some of them are on site, so they would be bringing that environment back. So we've decided not to do that. So what we're trying to do, what we're going to try and do, and we'll see how it goes, is try to do some remote things. So can we still play some of the family games that we always played at night? Can we do that through a Zoom meeting? Can we still have the kid talent show, but do it through Zoom? We have to look for ways to keep everyone connected, but find a new way to do it, because the old way just isn't safe right now. Another thing that's really important for as parents during this pandemic is helping our kids stay connected with other kids. And there's a number of ways that we can do this. One is continuing to try and figure out how to do play dates. Again, creative is the word. It's be safe, but be vigilant. Sometimes you can do in-person play dates. Again, this goes to your instinct as a parent. Do the other kids that you're getting together with, are their parents as diligent as you are and vigilant as you are? And so they can come together because you've essentially been quarantined in your home for a long period of time. Or are you not so sure and you don't really want them in the same physical space? Well, then maybe you have to look to online options. One of the things I will tell you is there's a number of games from Uno and Pokemon, things like that, that are online versions that are interactive and online. So you and your kids' friends can play together, but not be in the same physical space. Other online activities include like Uno, Pokemon, just do some Google searches on interactive games that kids can play that are kid-friendly and kid-safe. For older kids, Netflix has a shared movie component where you can actually, people in multiple locations can watch the same movie. You can talk during the movie, you can text with each other during the movie, you can pause the movie. If somebody has to go to the bathroom, they can pause the movie for everyone and go to the bathroom and come back. It's a neat little feature that's worth looking into. That's just one more idea of ways that you can help your teenagers connect with their friends. Pictionary charades are something you can play online. You set up a Zoom meeting or a FaceTime meeting, something like that, and kids of all ages can play these games together. Keep them guessing and keep them interactive, laughing, but feeling connected to their friends, even though they can't physically be in the same space. Social media is a wonderful way of connecting. It also can be a challenging way. So I would really encourage you to encourage your kids to engage in social media. But one of the things I would caution you is also use your right of veto and your right of discretion as a parent. You have a right to monitor your kids' social media. A lot of parents don't feel like, well, it's their account, I don't have a right to that. Yes, you do. And if you are concerned, you should monitor it, because there's much wonderful things that happen on social media. There's also some bad stuff that goes on there. There's a lot of cyberbullying and taunting and things like that. So please, if you have any question at all, feel free to ask your child to see their social media accounts. Just check it out. It's not because you don't necessarily trust them, it's because you don't trust their friends or you're concerned about their friends. You always want to frame it in terms of, not that I'm policing you, but I care about you, I'm worried about you, how can I help you? I want you to thrive in this environment. But I want you to be safe physically and also emotionally. And so I'm not going to allow you, I want to make sure that you're not being beat up, cyberbullying or verbally or whatever, while trying to engage with your friends. So it's really important that you have the confidence and you're okay with doing that. A last idea I'll throw out to you is, if your kids haven't done this, mail something. Now, I know the U.S. Postal Service is under some scrutiny and some criticism these days, but put that aside. Have your kid write a letter to a friend or to grandma and grandpa. This is one more thing you can do to help people stay connected with other people. I can't tell you how many kids that I've worked with that have never mailed anything, and often don't get much in the mail either, except maybe a birthday card from grandma or grandpa or an aunt or an uncle. But make it fun. The important thing here, in order to stay connected with other people, is the big word we could come back to is be creative. Look for ways of engaging with other kids in a manner that you feel safe and that you know your kids are safe and that everyone can have a good time and feel a little less stressed during this pandemic. Another area that's really hard for us as parents right now is the educational situation. You know, we have to help kids learn to adapt to the new and different learning environments. Um, Even schools that are back in session are, many of them are doing a hybrid form where you're in a few days and you're remote a few days and you're off a few days. I think we have to really help kids learn to be adaptive and flexible during all this. It's a new world. I keep coming back to it. It's a new world and we have to help kids. But you know what? In the world we live in, adaptability and creativity are essential to any job that we have. We have to be able to demonstrate this ability to change, not lose our values, not lose our morals, not lose our what we hold dear, but we have to be able to shift with the changing winds and be adaptable, or else we get crushed by changes in the world. It's really important to help kids learn to love learning. No matter what their educational setup is, whether they're completely remote, whether they're actually able to go to the classroom and have to wear their masks all day, or sit in little cubicles, or they have to eat lunch at their desk, whatever changes there are, we still want to help kids learn to love learning. What's new, what's exciting, how do we do that? Part of that is to be interested and inquisitive yourself. What'd you learn in school today? How's that going? I've never heard that. Tell me more about that. um, Support what your school is doing. Excuse me, I have a number of friends that work in school settings, and I can tell you they're working really hard to try and keep kids safe and try and keep teachers safe and administrators safe. It's a tough time, but everyone's trying to work on the same team. And so what I would encourage you to do is be part of that team too. Don't be afraid to voice concerns to your school. If you have an issue that you're concerned about, please bring it to their attention. Maybe they didn't think of it. Maybe they have thought about it and you haven't heard yet how they're responding to it. But certainly feel free to be actively engaged in what your school is doing, what your child is doing, um, and support them, and support them to the kids too. Let the kids know that you support what the school is doing, because otherwise the kids will develop a negative attitude towards their own school, and that's something we certainly don't need right now. The other thing with the educational component, excuse me, is to be involved to the level that you can. Now, this depends on the age of the child. When the kids are little, they're in elementary school, even up to middle school, it's not too difficult for us to engage in helping them with their homework and helping them with math and spelling and those kinds of things. When the kids start getting into high school, chemistry classes are a little harder. The math classes sometimes get to a point where they're taking math that we didn't have, or I didn't have. So be involved to the level that you can. And if it gets to the point where it's beyond what you can do, find tutors. Find, and I don't necessarily mean a paid tutor, but somebody that can help your child, someone that your child knows is there if they need them. So maybe you have an uncle, you have a brother or sister, or a grandpa or grandma, or someone that is particularly adept at math. Grandpa worked as an engineer, or grandma was worked in the medical field and is really good with math and science. Aunts and uncles that are actively engaged in different fields that they can help out. Don't be afraid to lean on them. Find the resources you need to help your kids. Be an advocate for your kid and help them problem solve. How do I get through this? Because this is kind of tough. And the last thing is, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you can't do it and you don't know where else to turn, ask the school. Do you have any recommended people that I can turn to? Do you have any tutors or people that are volunteers that are willing to help out? Because I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are more than willing and capable of helping out if only they're asked. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. One of the big things that, that people ask about during the pandemic is, how are you supposed to discipline your kids when you're all quarantined in the same house? Here we are, we're all stuck in the same house. How in the world am I supposed to keep these kids under control? Well, the first suggestion is to structure your day. To give the kids need structure. They need to know. When kids get out of control, a lot of times it's because they just don't know what's coming next. They need to know what is next, in the day. So structure the day as much as you can. Try to eat meals at as close to the same time as you possibly can. Keep bedtimes as consistent as you can. Keep the schoolwork, if they're doing remote learning, keep that as structured as you can so that the kid knows and has a routine that they know what to expect. The other thing that's really important during this time is to have, is to schedule both together time, what we do as a family, but also some alone time. That each of you, from your kids to yourself, need a little bit of time to yourself. So make sure you structure that in too, that everybody knows that, this is, mommy gets 5 minutes to herself, or daddy gets, 5 minutes to do what he wants to do, or you need to go lay down for a little bit, or go to your room for 5 minutes just to be by yourself, and it's okay and it's good. One of the other things I'm going to talk about is, it's important to know, Rudolf Dreikurs was a renowned psychologist in the 60s and 70s, and he always talked about what he said were the goals of misbehavior. When kids act out, there's always a reason, there's always a purpose. And he had 4 different goals of misbehavior. What the kid's intention is. One is, one is attention. When kids are acting out, it's just because they're trying to get your attention. They're missing you. They feel like you're distracted. They're feeling like either you're spending all your attention on housework, or you're on the telephone, or you're on social media, or you're talking to other adults, and they're just trying to get your attention. So we want to be aware of that. Power is another thing. When kids feel powerless, they'll often misbehave to try and get back some of that power, or to feel powerful themselves. Revenge is another area. Another goal of misbehavior. Revenge often occurs when kids feel like they are powerless. And so they feel like they have to get back at you, and they want to do something to make you hurt because they're hurting. And the last goal of misbehavior is giving up. Kids that have just lost any confidence in themselves, and often feel like you have lost confidence in as well. So we want to look for that goal, because we treat these different goals differently, or these goals of misbehavior, we treat them differently depending on what the reason is. Excuse me. This is a quick chart of kind of going over, why do kids do what they do? So if the kid's goal is attention, what the kid's thinking is that, I only belong when I'm being noticed or served. So if they're not feeling noticed, if they feel like you're on your phone, or you're, so busy with the laundry or the dishes that you're not seeing them, then they tend to react in a way to try and get your attention. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. At the end, I have a lot of links, and there's some links to other articles on, if you want to read more about this. But I just think it's worth knowing that it's important to know, why is the kid misbehaving? Kids don't misbehave just because they're bad kids. They're not bad kids. There's some ultimate goal they have as to what they're trying to get across to you or to other people around them. I am powerful. I am neglected. I am sad. I am whatever. I am worthless. So as parents, we want to be aware of that and respond in an appropriate manner to that. Sometimes it needs a punishment or a timeout. Other times it needs a hug and attention. Hey, let's sit down and read a book. It seems like you're missing me. Let's sit down and read a book. So it's important to know, why is the kid acting out? The other thing that's important to keep in mind is the difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline, if you go to the root of discipline, it's disciple. We want to make a disciple of someone. We want them to follow. We want them to follow us and our example and our beliefs and our behaviors. So discipline, when we use discipline, what we're trying to do is teach and lead. Punishment is just
overt force. I'm mad, and so I'm going to spank you because you made me mad. Or I'm mad, and so, you know, um, I'm going to win. Because sometimes we get into win-lose situations with our kids. And so in terms of punishment or discipline, we really want to try and use discipline. Discipline is, there's a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. So when you put a kid in timeout, you're not doing it as punishment because I'm mad at you, and so you're going to sit in this corner and stare at a blank wall um, for no reason. What you're doing is you're putting a kid in timeout and you're saying to them, it seems like you're out of control. I think you need to sit here for a few minutes until you get yourself back under control. I will set the timer when it rings. If you feel like you're under control, can rejoin the group, then come on out and join us. But if you don't, then you're going to have to sit here a little longer until you feel. So you're teaching them how to control their own body. I'm out of control. I'm throwing things. I'm yelling things. I'm whatever. You can take a step back, get yourself under control, and come back to the group, and that's okay. And we still love you, and you're a good person. Make the punishment fit the crime. Better put, make the discipline fit the crime, fit the situation. You know, what if a kid is upset that you're on the phone and is trying to get your attention, punishing them to the room, you know, sending them to the room is just further aggravating that lack of attention. You know, you want to figure out why is the kid doing this and respond in an appropriate manner rather than exacerbating the cause of the behavior in the meantime. So you want to think about, is the behavior that bad? Is he really trying to hurt somebody or be out of control? Or are you just overreacting because you're stressed? I mean, let's face it, in this pandemic, we're all a little bit more on pins and needles. And so we want to make sure that we stop, when a kid's acting out, stop and ask yourself, am I overreacting or am I reacting appropriately to, to what this child is doing? And respond from there. The other thing that's important is to make sure you can enforce it. You know, you don't want to say, you know, that's it, you're grounded to your room for 2 weeks. And there's no way you're going to be able to keep a kid in the room for 2 weeks. I mean, it's just, but sometimes when we get upset, we say things and impose discipline that there's no way we can enforce. Make sure you can enforce it and make sure that it's appropriate and the kid understands why. It's logical to the kid. So it may make perfect sense to you why you're imposing this discipline on a child, this punishment or discipline on a child, but the kid doesn't get it. So you want to phrase it to them in a way that they're learning. You're making them a disciple, a follower, a learner, and that's what's going to work for everyone. So again, the last point is, what lesson are you trying to impart on the child? What do you want them to learn from the situation? A, throwing trucks could get somebody hurt. That's not okay in this house. It's not okay in society. You can't hurt other people. When you say things like that, you hurt my feelings. You hurt your sister's feelings. You know, so we're trying to impart a lesson on the child in the midst of also helping them regain control of their body and their emotions. Another important thing to do during this pandemic is look for, again, I go back to the word of be creative. You know, as I said at the beginning, it's we want to be safe and we want to be vigilant. So what can we do to have fun now when a lot of the things we used to do are gone? Well, start with things as simple as a family game night. Maybe multiple family game nights, you know, in a week, where everyone in the family agrees that we're going to take this half hour or this hour and sit down and play a game together. And, you know, there are games at every level, whether you have young kids and the game is Chutes and Ladders or, you know, Candyland or any Hungry Hippo, any of a number of fun interactive games that young kids like, up to teenage years, you know, games like Catan or Monopoly or Risk that, you know, that everyone can play and everybody enjoys. The key is to make sure that everyone enjoys it. You know, some of those games can be pretty competitive and people get angry. I've seen a lot of family fights over Monopoly and Risk. Even games like Trouble, you know, you have to know whether your family will enjoy that kind of game or whether that's not a good game for your family to do. But find family game nights, things that you can do together that are really fun. Another thing you do is have a family movie night. You know, whether you do it once a month, once a week, a couple times during a month, but everybody in the family agrees, from mom to dad to the kids, that we're all going to get together and we're going to watch a movie that somebody picks. And you can take turns picking the movie. You can have a family consensus on it, however you decide to do it. But make it fun. Make it a fun night that we're all together as a family. Yeah, it stinks that we're all stuck in this house together, but let's find a way to make it fun and have some fun snacks with it. Pop some popcorn or get some candy from the store, or get creative in what you eat. Cut up some fruits and vegetables and have fancy dips or anything, something that makes it a fun night that everyone walks away saying, gee, that was kind of fun. I like that. Another idea you can try is just eat in a different or unusual room. Have dinner in the living room, have dinner in somebody's bedroom. Move it around. Just be crazy, be weird, be strange. What we're trying to do during the pandemic is change, getting out of stuck routines and mundaneness. That's what most people are struggling with, is um, that it's just monotonous, blah, 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 with no end sight, or no sight of this, or no end of this in sight. And that's just wearying. So find ways, do something weird, do something different, change it up a little bit. Another thing you can try is camp out in your house. Pitch a tent, blanket tent in the living room, or actually bring your tent in or whatever, and eat camp food. And maybe cook hot dogs over the stove. Be careful with that, but find ways to be creative and different, and that everyone can have fun. If you went camping, what would you do? The other thing is, there's no reason why you can't actually go camping, because as long as you maintain social distancing. So maybe you get your tent and go out camping, or you borrow somebody's tent and go out camping. Look for ways to get out of the house and do something different. The other thing to do, I say camping, get out of the house, but look for ways to be creative in the Erie or whatever area you live in. And sometimes you can even, go on to do some Google searches or whatever. Like, here's an idea of just in Erie County. So let me see if I can make this. Well, I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Whoops. But these ideas are at the end of the presentation as well. And this presentation will be available on the preferred system site. It's covidpreventionerie.com. So you'll be able to get this PowerPoint and these ideas. But the idea is there are websites with ideas. So on the website I was trying to bring up there for you, it talks about things like, go to Presque Isle. Presque Isle, there's a number of different things you can do, from hiking trails to canoe rentals, or kayaks, to just walking the main walking trail, to biking, to swimming. But get out, get out and do it in a way that you feel comfortable doing it. Now, a lot of people aren't comfortable going to Presque Isle. The walking trail, they just don't feel comfortable there, and I get that. People are only a few feet apart. Some are running. A lot of people are running without masks, which I understand that, but you may not want to be walking the walking trail and then have somebody running by, breathing heavily and spewing out their sprays. So that may not be something you're comfortable with, but look for ways to be creative. Go find a new place to have a picnic somewhere with your family, or your kids. That there are a number of different places you can go to, a number of little parks around within the city of Erie, outside the city of Erie, along the Lake Erie coastline. Find little picnic areas and have a family picnic outdoors. Something creative to change up the mundaneness of living in the same house every day, all the time. I'd be remiss to not talk about spirituality, because, the surveys have shown that somewhere between 75 and 90% of Americans believe in a higher being of some sort or another, whether it's God or Buddha or the Hindu gods. People are spiritual. They believe in a God. So the question is, for you to talk about it as your family, is where's your heart? For you to think about, first of all, is where's your higher power in this? Where is God? Where is Buddha? Where is, you know, Ghana? Any of the gods that people pray. Did he, she, or they create this pandemic? Um, and why isn't he, she, or they stopping this? But what's the reason I bring this up is this is a great time to talk to your kids about spirituality. What do they believe? What do they think? Where do they think God is? And you may want to present to you ask them first rather than trying to teach them to see, depending on their age, what have they learned so far in their faith formation? Do they see God's involvement in this the same way you do? Um, and use this as an opportunity to explore each other's faith, to listen to each other's faith, to challenge each other's faith. So when the kids say, well, I'm mad at God because God could stop this. Well, you may agree and say, yeah, I'm kind of mad at God too. Or you may say, oh, I don't believe that. Here's what I think, da, 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 da. So use it as an opportunity to, explore your spirituality together. Another question we get a lot at our agency is, when do I seek help? When do I know that it's time to get help? Well, obviously, first and foremost is any talk of suicidal talk or ideations that you hear from a child or any loved one, whether it's your parent or brother or sister or neighbor, whatever. If people are talking about suicide, the general thinking is believe that they're thinking about suicide. The other misconception that people have is if you talk about suicide, you can cause suicide. That is not true. The worst thing we can do is avoid talking about suicide. If someone is bringing it up, follow up with them as much as you can, or help them get help. Help them look for help. That people don't idly talk about suicide. If they're making jokes about it, obviously you want to keep it in context, and if they make a dark joke about suicide one time, you don't need to rush out and get a mental health counseling. But if it's said in a way that you think they might be thinking about it, follow up, ask them, have you ever thought about hurting yourself? Do I need to be worried about you? Any of those kinds of things, because it's very, very important. The suicide rates right now during the pandemic are up significantly. So please don't underestimate the importance of this. Self-harming behaviors is another thing. As people have, and self-harming behaviors would be things like cutting or burning or anything that someone is inflicting non-life-threatening harm onto themselves. Even driving recklessly can be that, just the thrill of just being wild and crazy at the thought of maybe getting hurt. But anyhow, what's important to know is that you want to watch for this and get them help. This is not something that is okay. It's just with all the stress that people are under, people are looking for ways to handle it, and sometimes people turn to self-harming behaviors. That needs to be addressed. So please find help. Eating disorders is another thing to watch. As we're living in this environment, a lot of people are saying, oh my gosh, during this pandemic, I've gained so much weight. It is hard. It's hard to be stuck in your house, and a lot of us do tend to overeat. So you want to watch that. You want to look for either overeating, excessively overeating, or more importantly, you want to look for signs of bulimia, where people are eating a lot and then all of a sudden going to the bathroom a lot right afterwards, or you hear them vomiting or throwing up, purging the food out of their system. Be aware of that. Or certainly anorexia, where people just aren't eating at all, and you see them, get help. Ask your doctor, call a mental health person. If you have this PowerPoint, you have my email, please feel free to reach out to me and say, what do you think? And I'd be glad to help you or think about that. Another time to consider seeking help is if you think that someone in your family or a loved one is experiencing mental health issues, and there's a family history of mental illness, that might be a time that you want to consider seeking help, reaching out and saying, hey, how about if you talk to a therapist? Have you ever thought about that? Because it really can help. So that's another time, is if you see signs or symptoms, things you're worried about regarding mental illness in someone you love, and you know there's a family history of that, certainly a reason to want to seek help. Another time to seek help is when you just aren't sure. If you don't know, ask, get help. You don't want to, the last thing we want to do in this pandemic is keep it all tucked inside, keep it quiet, don't talk about it, because we're not seeing each other, and so you might be the only one that, you might be the only lifeline for that person. You know, in normal times we go to work and a coworker could say, "Boy, you don't look very well today. Are you okay?" I'm not seeing my coworkers. You know, our agency is mostly telehealth, so I'm not actually physically laying eyes on my staff on a regular basis. If one of them is struggling, I wouldn't necessarily know it. Their family members would, and you as family members will see that in your own. Don't be afraid to seek help or to ask, or to say to somebody, "Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help you?" There are also some websites, and again, these will be listed. But if you Google, you know, when is it time to get help for my mental health issues, or when to seek help? The first one is from the Child Mind Institute. The other one is from the Academy of Adolescent and Child Psychiatry. But do Google searches, and they'll also give you some ideas of when you can, um, when you should seek help, and when you should watch but not necessarily have to seek help. You know, sometimes you just want to keep an eye on somebody. You don't necessarily have to get help right away. So you want to keep that in mind as well. And then here's some recommended resources. The Child Mind, and again, these are links. If you download the PowerPoint after this presentation, you'll be able to see some of these things. The Child Mind Institute Facebook Live is a series of videos presented for different age groups of things. So let me, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but there's videos like tips for communicating to your child's teacher, cyberbullying, supporting your child's mental health, how to manage, how to help teenagers manage romantic relationships. So this site has a number of little videos. They're all about 20 to 30 minutes long. Nice place to get some videos to watch to see what's going on. Positive Parenting website, again, just some nice ideas of what you can do with your kids, for your kids during a pandemic. You know, a number of these are. Here are, you know, under the 4 goals of misbehavior, if you want more information on that, you know, that's a good place to go and check it out, see, you know, what was Joe talking about there, and whoops. And what we can do, you know, to learn more about that. So the last thing I want to say is, or one of the last things I want to say is, be sure that you keep in mind during all of this, you know, this is being funded under grants for behavioral and substance abuse treatment. Keep in mind your own use of substances or addictive materials during this pandemic. It's really important. We've seen a high increase in use of alcohol and addictive materials. Watch your own behavior. Be attentive to that you use in moderation. Moderation, moderation, moderation. It's very important. You want to stay healthy. You want to model for your kids, and you want to make sure you take care. The last thing I'll mention is this last link for COVIDPreventionErie.com is the list of classes for in this series coming up. I would highly recommend you to check them out. There's a lot of really great webinars coming up between now and the end of December. So I would certainly encourage you to look into those. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to go to the COVIDPreventionErie.com website, download the PowerPoint that I used today. You'll have my email address on there. If you have any questions, um, at all. Even if you're just looking for a referral, you don't necessarily want to come to our agency, but you want some ideas of what's out there, please feel free to email me, and I'd be more than happy to try and help you talk through this. Or if you have a specific question about parenting that you'd like some help with, I'd be more than happy to be a sounding board for you, to help you talk through these things and figure out, what's the best solution for you. So I think that's all for now. I appreciate your tuning into this, and I wish you well in these difficult times. Thank you.